Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for joining this live stream chat. And in this chat, I'd like to talk about the changing patterns of wealth and how people accumulate wealth, acquire wealth, and where it comes from, how it's derived, and who has wealth and who doesn't across classes of society, and indeed what sort of contribution are these people making to society and to the economy at large, which is of course to the betterment of others, and who is acquiring money where they're making little or no contribution. Now, typically, certainly as I remember it, and going back through history, other than people who came from the money end of town and inherited wealth, those who had wealth typically were the hardest working, the brightest, the best qualified, the most skilled, and those who were careful, of course, with their money. People who were partying and gambling and that sort of thing, they may have made decent money, but they frittered it away. So being disciplined with money and sensible and thrifty and that sort of thing also was this part of acquiring wealth. And if somebody studied hard, worked hard, was disciplined with money, particularly in that upper working or middle class, you could do quite well for yourself, and that trajectory, that combination of acquiring wealth and, as I mentioned before, skills and so on, there was a very close relationship between the two. Those skilled people that didn't work hard would have less money than those that were skilled and did work hard. So that's kind of how it worked out, give or take. There was always exceptions, of course, but that was pretty much how it worked. Now, when I was sort of first buying property and as a kid, living with my folks and everything, pretty much everyone, for example, was bought their own house. There was very few that didn't, and by the time I started personally buying property, I noticed there was a change beginning where people were relying on parents that were helping them out. So the parents would buy the block of land and then the kids would put the house on it, that sort of thing. I've always bought my own property from my own money and had done pretty well. And so that's something that I noticed when others weren't doing it. That's the situation today where, as an example in the street, I mean, anyone sort of under the age of 60, say, really hasn't bought their own house. Their wealth has come from inheritance, primarily inheritance, and if it's women, it's been primarily from divorce. So this is what we see today, and I'll give you an example. There's a guy who's about 30, I suppose, and he's inherited a $2 million house. Now, there's a bit of a story to this, and so I'll go through it. His parents got divorced when he was about 10 years old or so. His father had been very focused on paying off the property. So effectively, when the divorce went through, this guy's mother really got a free house. And she was a part-time receptionist and he was a hard-working, industrious guy, and so he made all the money, but she acquired this fully furnished free house and a nice car in the driveway. She worked part-time and then relied really on child support and alimony, but she died got cancer and died, and so at the age of like 29, 30, he inherited this $2 million house. He was the only kid. So he inherited the house, and then what he's done, he was a part-time labourer, by the way, so he's making very little money. He lived in his mum's basement. He has no ambition. He takes after her, not after the father. No ambition, and thinks that he's going to get by just working 2 or 3 days a week labouring, and he really can't be bothered to do any better for himself. So he's gone out and used the collateral from the house to buy all sorts of consumer goods and borrow against it, because he's got a free $2 million. It's just landed in his pocket, so he can do he's got a lot of money to spend there, and he's like any irresponsible child who's never had to work for their money. He's running around buying $150,000 four-wheel drives and all sorts of consumer goods, and I can see this is going to catch up with him, pretty quickly. But he's quite a well-to-do guy. He's by inheriting that $2 million house, and he had no debt at the time. He's sort of catapulted into the top 5 or 10% of net wealth in the nation, even though he's got no money himself. So, and has made no money himself, and will not make any money himself. He lacks the skills or the drive or the energy or the wherewithal to do that. So this is an example of the sort of people who have money today that hitherto didn't exist. And there's another example. I attended a wealth making conference or seminar, whatever you want to call it. And a friend of mine was part of the thing, and he sort of invited me to come along and almost pleaded with me. So I thought, oh, it's only down the road. I'll go along to see what it's like. And it was one focus specifically on women. Now, the women who were there, who all owned property and all had considerable wealth, really, other than a few that had got it through inheritance, they had all made their money through divorce. Every one of them had a free house, or sometimes houses, in the event they divorced a guy who'd done particularly well. So none of them had actually made the money themselves. And as we look around, certainly as I look around at the moment, there's very fewer and fewer people of the total of those who have money or have wealth. There are fewer and fewer who've actually made it themselves. Maybe they've made a small part of it, but very few have gone out, worked hard, studied hard. They have no achievements to their credit, and yet they're quite well-to-do, as I mentioned, through divorce or inheritance. And this has changed the entire dynamic of where wealth goes, how it's acquired, and whether wealth is going to those who are producing the most, creating the most, achieving the most. And there's been a total and complete decoupling from that. Sure, those people still exist, but far fewer than there ever was. And as I look around today, and I'm sure there's exceptions to this, but as I look around today, for anyone under that age of 60, mid-50s, I can't even think of one that has made the money themselves. So there are fewer jobs that pay the sort of money that can result in a self-made outcome, the hard work and the industrious and so on. But also there's now a direct attack on merit at all levels. Merit at school, merit at college, merit in the workplace. Any form of merit is now under attack. And this is being reflected now in who has wealth and the amount of wealth they have. Now, there's a general knock-on effect here, of course, that really, if we're going to have a wealth-creating society, we have to have wealth producers and net wealth creators and producers, the innovators, the inventors, the hard workers, the people who are delivering innovations at all levels, organisational, technical, and so on. And these people are fewer and fewer now, and less able to create new wealth and generate new wealth, given the direct attacks on merit. Now, this is going to play out badly. In fact, it's already playing out badly. This is going to play out badly across Western societies and across all societies that are so willing to attack and undermine merit as a basis for selection at all levels. So there's something to consider and debate. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.